Good morning and welcome to the May 9th meeting of the Douglas County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. My name is Pam Weegan and I'm the chair of the CJCC. This is going to be a hybrid meeting, so I want to pass along a little information about how we're going to conduct the meeting. We ask that all members on Zoom please turn on video if you have it. We ask that all members on Zoom mute their line when not speaking. We ask that you please identify yourself each time you speak. If you're on Zoom and have a public comment to make during the public comment section of the agenda, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom. Recordings of the CJCC meetings are available on the CJCC website after each meeting. Our first agenda item today is the District Court Self-Help Center presentation by Brandy Brekovich. Brandy?
Oh, perfect. Good morning. I'm Brandy Nichols Brakovich. I am the self-help director here at Douglas County. Please bear with me. It's probably been about 15 years since I've done a PowerPoint presentation, but I will try my best. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Katie. Well, first off, like I said, I'm Brandy Nichols Brakovich. Our location is in the Judicial Center, which is the court building. We're just, in a minute, we'll just cover that, but a little bit about my background. I started as a Kansas Legal Services attorney in Kansas City, Kansas office. Well, if I backtrack even farther than that, I'm a KU Legal Aid Clinic that worked with Susie Ann. Went to Kansas Legal Services, was stationed in Wyandotte County. Spent a couple of years there doing senior law, domestic violence, things like that. Then I moved on to the city of Kansas City, Kansas, municipal court prosecutor, where I was a domestic violence prosecutor. In KCK, the way it works is that all misdemeanors are handled by the city court. So we had our own specialty domestic violence docket. A couple of years into that, I moved on to the civil side of the unified government, which, as you know, is unified. So I did some county work, some city work in the for the unified government. Then about 2013, I decided to come back down when there was an opening in the KCK municipal court judge's position. I had never had big ideas to become a judge, but that spot needed a lot of work for access to justice person and reasons, and I was very willing to take on that work. In 2019, I then became the administrative judge of that court, right in time to see us through COVID and the security hack and all of that good stuff. So I was very fortunate when this opportunity came available for me because access to justice is my passion. It should not depend upon your resources financially, socially, any sort of resources at all to make sure the justice system is working fairly and clearly for you. Here is a picture from the door inside. That's me waving. That is one view of our self-help. We are lucky that they included us in the Lawrence Art Guild, so I do get artwork as well. Right now, we have some limited walk-in hours because I'm building our volunteer base. So that way I can provide direct services during those hours, but still attend meetings and get to know people and connect as I need to make sure our office continues to grow. So if you need contact outside of office hours, I'm always available. Those are walk-in hours, but I'm here 8 to 5. So you can, first I want you to enjoy the Frog by Jackie Campbell that is in the courthouse. I loved it, so I needed to make sure it made the presentation. Appointments can be scheduled during outside of walk-in hours. I'm available if I'm not in a meeting, so I see a lot of people that way. I am getting a self-help email. This has been requested by many people. And I would like to say HR back in my old job hyphenated my name for me. So I love it, but I understand your frustration of having to type that all out. Email is typically the quickest way to get a hold of me because even if I'm in some meetings or I'm in in-between spots, some of those more basic questions I can answer, or I can at least respond and say, hey, I'm here. I heard your question. I can get back to you this afternoon. Things like that. I try to acknowledge because I understand that when someone's going through a court process, it is probably one of the most stressful things they've ever gone through, even if it seems routine to us or the court. And this is Lady Justice, and it's where I get to take a pause and turn it over to Judge McCabery so he can give you a little bit of the history of how the self-help office came to be.
Thank you, Brandy. I'm going to keep my part pretty short because I want the time to be on where we are right now. But just as a little bit of a background, I mean, the Self-Help Center is what the name implies. It's people working to help themselves with whatever legal issues or cases or challenges they may be facing here in the district court. The goal is at some point we may have some attorney volunteers who can offer some legal advice, but primarily it's not a place that, I mean, Brandy's not there to give out legal advice. She's there to help people who are seeking information, resources, or tools that for whatever reason they've decided to not hire an attorney. And, you know, I guess as far as the history goes, the idea of a self-help center has been around for a while. Johnson County had one set up and running. I know we went and looked at it. I was appointed as the chief administrative judge in 2020. And my recollection is early in that year, we went over and took a look, and then things happened, as the cliche is becoming these days, and some things got put on hold. But, you know, I guess my original idea was there's so many resources available online and other places that I wasn't sure. I wasn't personally convinced of what the need was. But we started re-exploring, and I started to make a little bit deeper inquiry. The two things that really, the immediate past history here is everybody noticed an increase in the number of people who were choosing to self-represent in the district court. And there's a variety of reasons people have for doing that. But we'd have people in court, and one thing judges can't do is give legal advice or tell people how to accomplish the thing that they may be seeking from the court. So, you know, we had more and more people who appeared to have on its face some legitimate objective or relief that they were seeking, but clearly did not know the proper procedure or even forms to use to get that job done. And so the other big step for me was I spoke to our court clerk and asked them to tell me two things. One, how much time do you spend answering questions from self-represented litigants? And two, give me examples of the types of questions that you receive. And I will just say that answers to both questions genuinely surprised me. Lots of time spent by our court clerk answering those questions, and very basic questions that I will admit, I just assumed, you know, people wouldn't have to ask those questions. And so what I discovered is we already had a self-help center. It was in the form of our court clerk's office. That was not fair to them, taking them away from their primary mission because they can't give legal advice either. And so we formed our committee. There were a number of people on it, other judges, other individuals that led to the self-help center you'll be hearing about today. And I will just add, we could not have a better person leading that. Brandy's past and history and passion is exactly on point for what we needed. And I want to express appreciation to the county commission for funding a position that, you know, my primary thought was an attorney in that position, because an attorney knows the line between legal advice and self-help. And we have that, but we also have so much more with her. And so I will let her explain where we stand today and where we hope to go.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate the compliment, and that hits me pretty deep because I found Judge McCabery to be one of the biggest hearts that I've come across in the judge's position, although he does keep it very well hidden behind process and making sure we are not that hidden, but make sure we're meeting all our ethical standards and we're not biased towards one group versus the other. But it is definitely a passion of everyone here at Douglas County to make sure everybody understands what they're doing. So we'll hit the next slide. This is where I feel like I hit stock photo gold. I'm just going to say that for a moment, both as we hit the most requested services for eviction, garnishment, and collections, as you would probably imagine. Quiet title on motor vehicles has surprised me a bit, but that is a very heavy lift for the clerk's office. It's also a sort of complicated form. So one of the first things I'm going to do is work with IT once they get everything smoothed over from the current situation, but their current upgrade. And do a guided interview form there, because there's a lot of if this, then that type situation. And so instead of trying to walk a person through 3 pages of instructions, I think it'd be much simpler to give a page of instructions, explain what they're doing, ask a series of questions, and print out the form that can be filed with the court. Divorce, of course, is very common. Really most common right now where both parties are self-represented litigants, but we do have some where just one is. Paternity, and I really want to highlight here because I think sometimes we overlook this. Primarily, it's the fathers that are initiating the paternity so that they can ensure their custody and visitation. So I think sometimes when we think about paternity, we sometimes think about it a little bit differently. And I think that also the other side of paternity is probably very well handled through DCF and other channels. But paternity for us is the father initiated, so they can guarantee and see their kids as they're going through their next family journey. Protection from abuse and stalking, of course, is a big thing. It is also something we have to keep in mind how we work our office design and situation, because we do as a self-help, we represent both, not represent, bad word. We help and assist both sides. Not at the same time, hopefully, but because of that, we have to be very mindful that we are an open office and how do we effectively serve both parties in a protection from abuse and stalking. Driver's license restoration is also part of this and will be one of the just default questions we ask. As a judge in KCK and as a prosecutor, we did this all of the time and built a program. So we're going to build it into our self-help sort of wraparound process, because it's really hard to get to your work consistently and pick up your kids consistently and get to the parenting classes consistently if you don't have a driver's license that allows you to get insurance and get your vehicle and all of that. Adult name change is also a requested service. Now that is outside of gender marking adult change that goes through KU Legal Aid and other channels. And those are outside of divorces. Most of those occur right at the time of divorce. Sometimes though a mom's not sure if she wants to change her married name because of her children, things like that. We do see adult name changes. And again, I want to draw your attention to that stock photo that I felt like I hit gold with. All right, so that is the 2 computers we have at the self-help office right now, and then a little kids work area so we can try to separate them and give them a little break from the grown-up things we're talking about. That roll-up window will not be opened right now because it is an access point into the courthouse before you get to go through screening. So that is dangerous for our divorce folks, it's dangerous for our protection from abuse, and it's dangerous for our judges. So because of that, we are looking at some alternatives to bring some light in there, but safety's first. So we are just working around it. And that is why we are very thankful we have that artwork in there to kind of freshen it up. So how self-help offices can provide the equal access to justice is that we can give legal assistance in the form of resources to grab those statutes, those forms. Thank you. And refer to Kansas Legal Services. So, we have tons of folks that come in where English is not their first language. We have folks that read at different levels, and primarily when you're in crisis or you're stressed, your reading comprehension, even the most successful students of us are impacted. So just having someone there to direct you. Oh, where did it go? The next one coming? Oh. Did I hit something wrong? I swear there's something else. There we go. So just hit this now or let's try this next time. Okay, perfect. All right, so legal information and making those legal forms less daunting allows a better understanding of legal rights and responsibilities. So hopefully this also allows folks to understand not only what we're doing and what they're doing in the court rights, but really make sure they have an idea when they leave the court and they're done with the judge's guidance and our guidance, how those visitations are going to work, how the eviction's going to work. You know, what it means if you're under a protection from abuse order and how to respond and should you respond, things like that. We also increase the efficiency by helping people navigate the legal system. I'll have a kind of a quick example of this later, but that is not only helps the people that are coming in, it helps our court system move more efficiently. And at the end of the day, allows the taxpayers to pay less money for just as much service. So, you know, service is first, second is efficiency of court, and third is to be mindful that we are stewards of the taxpayers' money. We also helps with, because it assists in prevention. By providing education and resources, we can help people avoid the legal problems. So our office plans to be a wraparound. We're not going to be where you go to get your community resources, but we are going to be a spot where we can get you to those community resources. We hope to continue to expand our outreach so that you know that if you don't know if you can pay rent, you can come to us and we can start putting you in assistance and getting you through that. If you feel like you have some concerns about protection from abuse or divorce, we can also, if you come in, we can start that advising you, getting you to the advocates, telling you the forms, getting you familiar with the information you might have to provide if you provide that information. So just trying to make people aware of the justice system and what we can do to kind of help minimize and prevent those increased emotions that can occur. So self-help this is the hardest thing sometimes for folks to understand. We are a function of district court. That means I am an arm of Judge McAbry himself as a chief judge of our court, just like all the other court employees. So as a self-help, we must be competent, just like we want our judges. We must be neutral to assist each party equally, because it's not equal access to justice if we pick one party over the other. We have to be unbiased. We have to provide practical legal information to self-represented litigants. There is no attorney-client relationship. We express this many times. It's on all the forums. In fact, I kind of need to figure out a safer and softer way to put that on the third or fourth email response, because by the third or fourth, it kind of feels like you're saying, I'm not an attorney, I'm not your attorney, but we want to make it really clear that we are not your attorney and the other party can seek help. And please don't tell us anything private. We are not going to purposely violate your privacy, but we cannot guarantee it the way an attorney can. And services are not intended to give one side of a case an advantage over another. The goal is equal access to justice, efficiency, and to make sure people feel like they really understood what happened in the justice system. So what we do provide also is access to information about pending cases. Come in, you can run it yourself, or you can ask me to help you locate it. We have location and copies of legal information, so I can send you where to go find the statutes. If you're looking at, you want to be involved in the county commission, I can send you to resolutions, charter ordinances, things like that, where you can locate it. Referrals to attorneys. At this time, it's primarily Kansas Legal Services, but I have a couple that are extremely specialized attorneys that are willing to assist us, and we're going to continue to build that network. We're kind of asking the attorneys to tell us what their comfort level is. Are you comfortable coming in 2 hours at a time with whoever walks in, or are you a probate attorney that's more comfortable helping in a temporary guardianship and want a referral? We do have 3 attorneys that are providing limited legal advice. Those are currently Marilyn Hart. I believe Scott Stockwell is also available, and Martha Kaufman. We're getting ready to meet with those folks, get an idea of what they want to do. The thing with the limited legal advice by volunteer attorneys, it's they do sign up through Kansas Legal Services to be a pro bono attorney. That gives them the access to the legal malpractice insurance, but there's also some Supreme Court rules in there that allow some basic information without leaving them exposed to liability. We also have the computers to search the statutes, law, and open records. If you come in and you tell me you're looking for, you just need somewhere to search that, I'm going to be there. I mean, I'm not going to stand over your shoulder So come in, take a look at what you need to. Again, it's also to kind of lift that off of the clerk's office. They have some too. And us be the gateway and let the people that need the more detailed experience in the court, let us deal with those that can, that don't need quite the same detailed level of assistance. Self-help cannot, as Judge McCabery said, I cannot give legal advice, cannot. And I make that very clear. I cannot recommend any specific course of legal action or strategy. This is the hardest one. I think it's going to be the hardest one for our volunteers because it is a human desire when somebody comes in front of you that you give them all information to make them successful. But if I give you a strategy or a legal action, then I am giving you an advantage over one other party, and that's not something I can do. So I feel like that is going to be our biggest training point. I can assist you to complete forms. I cannot, so I cannot provide detailed assistance. So if somebody says, or in a PFA and it asks, why do you feel in danger? I can say, why are you scared? This is where the things that you were talking about that makes you feel like you need to get away. That's what I can say. I cannot provide the elements of a PFA. So I can't say this is where you would say this because it would prove that. So those are sort of for the attorneys, anyone, but especially for the attorneys, kind of how I think about it is I can guide you to what you've said, but I cannot give you the elements. I cannot interpret the statute rules or definitions to apply to a specific situation. That's all there, and it's really hard. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be because it's just a human response to want to help people. We cannot advise on rules of evidence, witness, objections, or rulings that, you know, I can provide and make sure you understand. If the judge wants, if the judge would like, if they do everything electronic copy, if there's an elbow camera, things like that, but I cannot tell you how to admit that information. And I also cannot provide confidential information. If you cannot get it yourself from your resources, I cannot provide it. So when you're set at home with Odyssey, our court software, there's a little bit less information than you get than when you come to a kiosk. And when you come into the kiosk, that's about the most public information you're going to get. That's all I can provide. We've had a few early successes, a couple of them before we even opened. The first, we had a gentleman that is a participant in one of our specialty courts. He is facing some housing instability that had been able to get him stabilized at least temporarily, but he had a $23,000 mortgage overage after the foreclosure of his home. There had been some recent state laws in place where the court itself is no longer allowed to cut that check overage. It has to go through the state. This particular person likely did not have the capacity to take all of the steps it would take to get to the state. There are multiple states. It's confusing even for those of us that do it all the time, the first or second time. So we were able to work with him, hand him a blank motion. Again, just say, hey, what are you in here asking for? He said, I'd like the money overage. Okay, write that down. The clerk's office, Douglas County Clerks had agreed to allow the check to be mailed to them so he could pick it up from them since he was not completely stable with his housing. I said, where do you want the check sent? He said, I want it sent here, put it in a motion, and it went up to Judge McCabery. He was able to get that order in place, and he has since picked up the check. He did become stable with his housing, so he did ask the clerks to forward it on, but that was a perfect example of kind of what we do and the different levels of help we provide. Second, we had a basic divorce, no house, no kids, no property we were sharing at all, but it was overwhelming for one party. It was causing a lot of conflict in this relationship and getting very frustrated. It was also multiple divorce hearings. Finally, that gentleman called me an hour before court. He had his forms. He asked a couple of questions. He was in Norton, Kansas, and could not get the forms to me. So we came up with a plan where he could text me the forms. After the judge's AA said text would be enough, I then sent an email to all parties, just as I would as a self-help. So it wasn't me advocating or initiating it. I sent those to all parties. He appeared on a Zoom hearing. The divorce was granted at that hearing, and there was about 30 minutes of, we're going to be friends forever. Thank you. So all of the drama had been sucked out, and he just kept mentioning a lot of times people will tell you over and over, I'm so stupid, I didn't get this. And I'm trying to explain, even as an attorney, these forms are designed for the Bezos divorce or the people that have no assets together. They are inherently confusing. So I don't like forms, and I have built them and I help people with them. I totally understand. The third is not so much a success story for self-help itself, maybe a little bit with a referral and some advice that we did, like a prescription pad, but I really wanted to advocate for all the good work that Gabby Sprague is doing. A woman was homeless, was suffering some mental health issues. They were able to, with her spouse, they addressed some mental health issues, which then went on to housing stability, which then allowed her ex-husband to allow her to gain access to her children, which then allowed the ex-husband to allow the children to be with her most of the time and share visitation. And she came in because the husband was going out of state, and she just wanted to ensure she had something that in place that showed that she had the kids and they needed to come back in state. So without housing, none of that would have happened. So I just really want to bring that just one little thing made all the difference for that family. Now, as far as self-help, we were able to have her apply for Kansas Legal Services right there. We're also able to, she had some assistance with some community partners about some help sometimes with legal fees. So I helped her understand limited legal advice and what that means and how they can help figure out the form instead of a full representation. Kind of gave her a couple of options, and she has successfully gone on her way. So a lot of questions are about who can we help, what level they have to be, do they have to prove that they can't have an attorney? No. The only kind of restriction that we have is that if you're represented by an attorney, it is not ethical for us to provide you assistance. We will refer you back to that attorney. We can help any self-represented litigant with a case in Douglas County District Court or who resides in Douglas County. There are no income or eligibility restrictions. Now, we are a wraparound service. Like I said, you usually don't come in with just one issue, even legal issue. You come in with all kinds, and we're not going to send anybody and ask those questions and send you out. But those are kind of who the Douglas County taxpayers are paying for us. Those are our primary focus. But if anybody comes in, we're not going to say you need to leave because you don't meet these criteria. As we look at expanding and getting a bigger office someday, we're also going to build in some Zoom little offices where they can meet with attorneys, but also that would allow, let's say you have a municipal court case in Wichita, and they allow you to appear by Zoom. You can come into our schedule it, or I can put you in the Zoom and you can go to court that way. No fee to use the Legal Self-Help Center other than copies at this point. So there's like a set of 3 copies that you need to make in order to file cases. A lot of time, if we do that by email, I'll advise them before and they'll bring it in. If they forget, it's not expensive at all. I think I had a woman recently pay $1 to file a full eviction appeal, or the official word for eviction appeal. I was also excited about this stock photo. The one thing we need is volunteers. We will take any sort of volunteer. Community members are great. Students are great. Attorneys are great. I've reached out to a lot of the pre-law students because our self-help office can provide a lot of the things that Legal Aid Clinic provided to me, but for the representing. So you get that client intake, you get that identification of what assistance you need to provide. So if you want to be a lawyer, if you don't want to be a lawyer and you like to help people, that's great too. We did get some suggestions to reach out to the Master Social Work for macro sociologists or sociology students to come in and work with us. We're going to be applying for AmeriCorps worker. And we've done an eviction diversion coordinator grant. So what those different things would do is the eviction diversion coordinator would appear at every eviction answer docket and provide information and try to build some sort of connection between that tenant and the landlord to see if they could get some mediation there, not pro-tenant, not anti-landlord, just more, can we work out a situation where the landlord can get what they need and where the tenant maybe doesn't have to have the eviction on their record, so that when their life does stabilize, they are not having such a difficult finding housing. Our goal is to go full business hours and extended hours at satellite locations. Our AmeriCorps worker, if we do that, we're looking at all kinds of things you can do to work around those community resources that really allows us to go straight into Eudora and Baldwin, because we do have to figure out how to move into Eudora and Baldwin. And work with their AmeriCorps officers. Do you bring in some of that social work focus, or do you look at a family navigator program where there is one person assigned to help guide folks through the process where the other person is represented by an attorney? So I feel like the self-help office with our volunteers can do a really great job with the people that are both self-represented litigants. It's a little more difficult to do with the attorney, because the attorneys also are very aware of their ethical boundaries, and it's just really hard for the attorneys to help get that person any sort of assistance, and it's just easier if somebody could go there. So we're looking forward to taking over the world. We're going to slow roll into it. And this is the most important part of the presentation. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear gaps, areas that you would like us to see, to fill, increase access to justice, or even just questions. And, I always want to hear your questions today, but I also want you to think about these other areas, because we cannot get better if we don't know about the gaps. So I'm going to leave it for questions or suggestions for me. Go ahead.
First question, how would people find out about your services?
So we are located in the courthouse, right where it's open. So where people used to come in and ask for things to go, we get court security. The clerk's office refers us. The judge's AA refers us. We did do an open house, and now we're going to try to kind of blitz that media to make people aware and to go into any community group that would like to see us.
What do you think about putting something on like the summons, like the stock summons that comes from the court that just says, if you need self-help? I mean, those are produced by the court. I'm just thinking maybe that at least give somebody, if they're reading the form.
That's a great idea. And I will work with Judge McCabery to see if we can do that just as soon as that summons comes in through a QR code and a website and everything. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. May I get your name?
Brad Finkeldine.
I think we went to law school around the same time.
That's right. Second question, now that the judge is here, what if someone comes in with a municipal court question from Baldwin, Eudora, or Lawrence? Will you answer that?
No, I sent him to Judge Kopecky and said, not my problem. I know Judge Kopecky from my KCK days. I will answer it if I know it. I will, if it's something that I don't know for sure that they have to go to speak with municipal court, I'll give Vicki a call or Judge Kopecky an email. Kind of what I've been telling folks that refer people to me. Don't worry if it's something I can or can't handle. I will be the point of not passing the buck and get the person where they need to go. So the idea would be I would have that information, but not for the courts to send them specifically to me. But if you wander in, my expectation of myself and any volunteers would be that we assist and fix the issue.
Question. So you said,
Leave it on.
so you said that you would help with the forms, right? So suppose you had a person that had literacy problems.
Mhm.
So how would you help them with that form? Are you filling it out as they talk, or what's happening?
So the one gentleman that we assisted, had a limited literacy and he was worried about his spelling. So I just explained, don't worry about your spelling. If somebody asks me for a specific word, I will go ahead and give that. If we have more significant literacy where I think I'm going to have to get more involved, I'm going to definitely run that through Judge McCabery or try to find a limited attorney. We're going to come across that with literacy issues. We're going to come across that as English as a second language. My husband is English as a second language. You would never know it, but because of that, I know we're going to come across it a lot. So that's how I would try to handle that. May I get your name?
Doris Ricks.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about, I love this, being able to refer out to resources, and I'm thinking the other way around too. So other than like just being a presence in the court, I know engaging with social service providers and giving us something tangible that we can have in our offices for folks would be very helpful. I know, especially with our resident services, we get those kind of questions often.
Yep.
So that would be really helpful. And then on the other side, as far as referring material, is that something that you would like to see from social service agencies? Do you want like our business cards? Is there any material that we can have at this help desk, or is it just specifically contact?
No, we will take anything you want to provide. We'll try to keep it organized in a way that we can do it. I plan on working on getting a pamphlet and kind of a identity for self-help so that we can get that out. I'm already out of cards except for 15 that I have here. So I will get that. My goal is to work on QR codes and things like that because a lot of our folks have that capability, but also knowing that there are some people like me that are still Luddites. And so, but yes, that will be coming the next step. Also, we had the big open house, but was kind of bar focused and court focused. What I'm planning to do is roll those out to personal invites over the next probably year. They won't be big with cookies and punch for everybody, but definitely have you come in, take a look, see what it is, meet me, let me know what you need from me, and I will have the information I need to provide to you.
Yeah.
What I view the court self-help is Douglas County has all these great resources. And so where's the web? And I want to be a hub of the web if you have a legal resource issue. And those webs include community resources, housing stability, all of that. So I will get working on that.
Yeah. And then just thinking about what you can and can't do and accessibility wise, sometimes like a video or a media that just kind of explains it will at least empower a lot of our folks on the social service side to be able to explain that up front. Because I would love to be like, this is what they can provide for you. So they're not walking in with an expectation, because sometimes that happens with some of our clients. But
Yeah, absolutely. That would be
Yeah.
fantastic. I love it. And I know your name, so I already jotted it down.
Well, I'm so excited, Brandy.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
This is Shannon Reed. Yeah, I love that idea, Montiel, and I think that videos that can be shared amongst social service providers, all the advocates, caseworkers, outreach workers that are fielding questions, for us to all be on the same page, I think will help you and it will help us in those roles. I'm curious about, well, you mentioned paternity cases and you made some specific comments about fathers, and well, I have a question and a comment. My question is, are you supporting folks with, or kind of suggesting that they may want to search and see if a case already exists? Because in paternity cases specifically, they sometimes get filed, and if, for example, DCF does not have good address information for the other parent, which is provided by the parent getting benefits, that father in your example coming in to try and file something may not know that something's been filed because they weren't properly served. So I just thought about that and was wondering if helping people like search, sometimes that's the first step that I do with folks. Do you have any cases that you don't know about, right? Including evictions, maybe because you didn't.
We search
properly
by
get
name as
served.
soon as you come in
Okay,
to try to
great.
locate. Yes, thank you. Because I'll make sure I have that too.
Yeah, I just, that comes up. A lot of folks come to us wanting to file paternity action only to come to realize that the state has already filed one on their
Mhm.
behalf and they
Yep.
didn't understand that. And I've seen that get wonky before
Yeah.
for judges. And then I just wanted to make a suggestion to think about less gendered language when it comes to the paternity action. And so there's all kinds of situations and relationships where folks are coming in. I like understand that the dynamics are pretty common, but it's also sometimes dads who have the children physically with them get DCF benefits and therefore have child support against maybe another dad, you know, because there's all kinds of legal protections. So I just want to encourage being thoughtful about that gender neutral language.
I will work on that. I did kind of struggle with that. And also in my personal situation where a dad that was the primary parent and with a mom. But I really felt like, and I will work on it and keep there, but I really felt like the stigma is really on the fathers of the typical not typical, oh my gosh. Heterosexual relationship.
That was
because
a good catch, Brandy. I
no,
mean,
no,
really,
I-
I appreciate it. Thank you.
the heterosexual relationship, because I feel like they are the ones that come in and are really stressed about, I just got this default order and they told me I'm a default parent. And when I don't see that with some of the other relationships, but yes, I am definitely going to work on that very, very much. Thank you.
I think it just helps. I'm specifically thinking about it as you're working to develop that like identity and materials that communicate to people what you do that, I mean, it goes to that sort of neutrality piece too, right? Like
Mhm.
someone will read that and the situation will apply to them regardless of gender
Yep.
or regardless of whether or not they identify as a mother, father, or parent
Yep.
or guardian. So
Yep, absolutely.
anyway, I'm very excited about this.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the thorough presentation.
Yep, thank you. What I might start doing too is then just reaching out to a group that is a good support there and help keep an eye on it as I learn. Yes.
One other question. I know the Douglas County Law Library is open to the public. When I was looking the other day when I was in court, I was thinking you're over by the law library, assuming that would be where you're at because of the resources. I didn't find you there, but now I know where you're at.
Used to a U-turn.
What's
once you're in.
how do you work with the law library and how do you allow people to access that? And how do you work with the law librarian?
So if someone asks me if they need access to the law library and it's not just online, I would walk them back to the law library. Lindsay and I work very well together. I also think at some point in time, it's natural for us to come together. And I think that's kind of the view, is to tuck us together at some point, because we can also offer those meeting rooms. Both us have some, the law library has some. They can be shared as necessary with attorneys and volunteer attorneys, and then have one spot for resources so you can go. So at this point, I would just go ahead and walk them to the back, let them know to come back with me if they need help. Did I answer that?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Maybe with an expansion of the district court, we might put those together, maybe?
I don't want to presume anything. Those are the judges.
I was looking at Sarah, not.
Yeah. As I said, I don't want to presume anything. I've been in city and county government for a long time. And I don't want to speak for the judge, but I am fairly certain that the judge and Linda Custer Vogelsang's view is that self-help and law library are kind of the gateway, and it makes sense for them to be together. But that's a question for Judge McCabery. Hopefully I didn't overspeak.
Brad Finkeldye once again being wise and insightful.
Brandy, this is Pam.
Mhm.
Thank you for the presentation. It was awesome. I was glad to see you had some early successes, but I was curious, how are you going to measure the success moving forward? What kind of data are you going to track? Because that's the kind of stuff people want to know.
Yes, so we are going to use the Kansas Legal Service data system at first. It'll be separated from them. It'll be a firewall. People that come in, what type of services they're coming in. Down the road, I would like to look at the number of continuances a case took before self-help on self-represented litigants and the number of hearings it took after. We are also looking at the other self-help to get that information, and then the eviction diversion. If we were to get lucky enough to get that, will give us a lot of data resources too. But that's sort of the data we're looking at right now. The one negative that I don't enjoy about the Kansas Legal Services Program is we do have to ask citizenship questions or legalized status. And so really, I'm going to have to train my volunteers and myself to be very soft and very cognizant of the uncomfort of answering that question. But because it's connected to the Legal Services Corp, they have to ask it. And then I am working on a demographic sheet now, because what we are hearing from self-help offices is the more questions you ask, the more frustrated they get. And so the quick resources get impaired. So I'm also preparing something to send up to Linda and Judge McCabery that is maybe a voluntary demographic question, where it's almost like your recommendations, you're putting it in a box yourself. It's not going to be connected to your intake sheet, so that we can try to really get that good data that people are maybe uncomfortable connecting to their name.
I have another question. I just brought up another question. So around status, if a potential community member is uncomfortable responding to that question, is that a prevention of providing service? Okay.
No, we'll just have to keep that hand tallied information. It just means your data may not be 100% correct because we can't put it in, but we'll figure out a way to get that number over.
With that, if we're providing resource about this or letting people know, just providing that in the primary languages that are spoken, and maybe really working with some of the organizations that are that work with that population would be very important, because just coming from that community and being a part of the work that happens there, this is a stopping point for a lot of people, and just knowing that they have a resource they can be comfortable with is very, very important.
Yes, thank you. And that is also why it'll be important for community partners, because a lot of times, you know, in KCK, not to talk, but El Centro. So if you had somebody that was uncomfortable getting help with code enforcement cases where we knew that they had access to grants, we not be as then the prosecutor or the code enforcement officer may not be able to engage them, El Centro would. So yeah, we want to make sure we have all of that in our common languages, and also be aware of our partner agencies that can help bring that in. The other thing is we're going to focus hard on representation in our volunteers, because if the volunteers are there working, then hopefully that brings some comfort level for the group, members of that same group to come in.
Talking about those volunteers.
You want to volunteer? No, go ahead.
Well, I thought about it, seriously.
Okay.
So do you have a standard operating procedure that you will be doing that training for all of the volunteers, so that the dialogue will be the same across the board?
Yes, we have one right now that was sent to us by the Office of Judicial Administration. And then Sarah Hoskinson with the Office of Judicial Administration has asked me to partner with her to actually develop Kansas's specific training around the self-help. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wait, Brandy, I'm sorry. Sorry, this is me always with an afterthought. I don't think, I was just replaying the presentation. We talked about expungements. Has that question come up for you yet? I know Douglas County Legal Aid Clinic and the DA's office has the clinics throughout the year. And I make direct referrals to legal aid, in between those clinics. Is that going to be information that's accessible?
Absolutely.
Self-help?
Yeah. In fact, at the request of DA Valdez, I have made sure anytime that expungement question comes up, or at the KU Legal Aid Clinic too, that is not a clinic-based issue. That is a year-round issue. Just like the name clinics those are clinics so that they can do publicity, but it's year-round. But yes, that will be information we provide. Mhm. And I think there was some discussion eventually too about if I have volunteers being able to be there at first appearances for filling out public defender forms and things like that would be a secondary, where self-help is one side and access to justice would be more the other. And we want to make sure we play a part that is specific in our lane for that part. But right now the priority is the civil and in these other areas. Yes, ma'am.
So I stayed quiet, but Brandy, I want to thank you. I mean, this is just in a few months grown to, I mean, at amazing rates. And yeah, you made the clarification that right now you're focusing on civil. And we hope the expungement piece of it is just really for us, a very good opportunity to really help clean the slate of criminal history so that people can get employment, can get housing, all those things. So thank you for that. And we want to make sure that as soon as we get our website, I know there's county website development. We want to have as many links to Brandy's self-help center in terms of making sure that we're there. So whatever, of course, most of the work that we do involves appointed counsel or retained counsel, but still there's other pieces of it that I think the self-help center can really help with. So we're looking forward to that. I didn't want to mention it because I know she's really growing something from a seed, but it really has grown amazingly. So thank you, Brandy.
Thank you. Well, and to that point, as someone who used to advocate for victims, that's not my current role. But when I used to advocate for victims occur in all different, they're not all angels. They don't all have clean backgrounds. They don't all have their driver's license, and some do. But there are a lot of points and times where victims, for whatever reasons, need the assistance of self-help to get everything cleared up too. So we see that as a natural spot. I also, much like I said, that we are the web. I would like to create when we do a mobile friendly web of, there are multiple ways to get to that information. So if you've heard 3 different ways of thinking, you're still going to get to the same information. So that's our goal, to make it as easy in plain language as possible so that everyone can have access.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you, Judge McCabery, for giving me this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Brandy. It's amazing work, obviously.
Our next item is the CJCC work group update from our CJCC coordinator, Katie Fitzgerald. Oh, please share something.
So Shay Downing shared in the chat, Brandy, she said, I can think of diversion, revocation, or traffic and license issues as having a clear path through self-help.
Thank you, Shay. I agree.
I'm not sure if you caught that, Shay, but she said she agrees. Okay, I'm going to try to be quick. I also just want to echo and thank Judge McCabery and Linda Vogelsang and Brandy for all of their work on the Self-Help Center. I've really enjoyed working with Brandy over the last few months and look forward to working more with her in the future. And I'm going to try to be real quick today. I have 2 slides. I wanted to just kind of touch base about work groups. So we spent a lot of time the last couple of months, or the last couple of meetings at least. I feel like this is really loud. Trying to put together work groups for kind of moving forward. So I have heard from maybe a lot of folks. I wanted to kind of just share where the 2 big new groups or new areas of focus for the CJCC, we've talked about failure to appears and probation violations as new work. So far, these are the folks I've heard from, either just from CJCC member agencies. who have either delegated staff or have volunteered for each of these two groups so far. I know we have some of our disciplines and other members are still kind of working through what that might look like for their agencies. But just so folks have a sense, if I'm missing anybody for these two groups, please let me know. Because I think we're ready to kind of start diving into these. So these are the two new work groups at the moment. And then for racial disparities, this work group has been led a lot historically by Matt and Chuck. Pam has also been, we'll call we kind of have some legacy members. Some of the new folks who have volunteered. We have our chief ADA from the district attorney's office, Shay and Marielle have volunteered to also join this group. And then just kind of recapping work or topics that have come up over the last couple of months to guide kind of this work group. The law enforcement contact study is we've talked a lot about that. That's ongoing. Matt has worked a lot with our chiefs and law enforcement leaders to establish kind of a continued workflow about that. Bob talked a lot in our last meeting about one of the areas where we haven't really done a lot of kind of digging into is looking at racial disparities at that intersection of behavioral health and criminal justice. Matt has done some initial data. It's actually really interesting. He's been spending a lot of time kind of looking at what behavioral health and taking some different views of that, how that shows up in our jail. So this is another point of work that this work group can take on. And then we've talked about implicit bias training, what that looks like currently for our members. So I know we have some agencies who have talked about at different points how their agencies push out and utilize implicit bias training for their staff. And then could this work group kind of index that and kind of take an inventory of when we look at for our criminal justice partners, what does implicit bias training kind of look like now and where are opportunities to make that more broad and more broadly available? Am I missing things? Are we kind of, that's kind of where we're at now, but I'm kind of, for me, I would say I'm ready to start kind of moving forward on these, but just want to make sure that I haven't missed anyone who maybe hasn't spoken up yet about being interested in picking up some of this work. And I may have missed a chat. Go ahead, Suzanne. That's actually all I have.
So Katie, thanks for putting these working groups together, and there's someone from my office assigned to all of your working groups that I think will fit for what you're seeking to do. But at any time, just let me know if you need me to be there. I'm happy to be there. But I know that the folks that are assigned to those committees are very excited about being a part of solutions. So just wanted to let you know that,
I appreciate that.
yeah, they're excited.
Question, so is it too late to join a?
It is not.
All right.
I'm actively we're doing an active membership drive today. That's what's happening.
Thank you.
For
Thank you.
Katie, I think I noticed that maybe a couple examples of people serving on more than one work group. Accurate? Okay. So I just also want to note that that is possible if you feel like you have time, space, capacity, and energy to do so.
Yeah, I don't want to folks to overextend, but if
absolutely
it's
not.
appropriate, where it's appropriate for staff delegates potentially, and in some cases that is it's more appropriate for those agencies where it is like the more of the leadership to be in that role, at least initially. And these work groups also, I foresee particularly with the failure to appear work group, I think it will be kind of living where there may be some like offshoots that
Sure.
we didn't initially think about that then may, so I know Susan, you're one of the ones who's on multiples, but so then as the discussion kind of continues, it might make more sense for Susan to say, well, no, I have other staff who can actually do that, but it's more important for me to be here. So however agency leaders kind of feel that is most appropriate and based on staff characteristics and workload
Yeah.
of staff.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I appreciate that explanation. And mostly just wanted to illustrate that there's flexibility. And so if you're having a hard time choosing because you really want to be a part of more than one conversation, by all means. But I appreciate you illustrating that, the point is that we want engagement from all of the stakeholders, and we recognize that there's all kinds of moving parts to our jobs and sort of daily routines and things that are our responsibilities. So there is flexibility to really, if it becomes clear that somebody else in your obvious would be a perfect fit for how these conversations are going, then I think we really want to make these work groups open to that because we want them to be successful, right? And not rigid about who signed up by a certain deadlines per se.
So when are you gonna start? You haven't convened them yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay.
I
Soon.
would expect doodle polls out by the end of the week.
Gotcha.
I have started talking with some of the folks for the failure to appear group in particular, because it's large and being mindful of court schedules. Court schedules is what's going to really drive a lot of these for folks. And so that's, so I have kind of started touching base with some of the folks on that, looking at Judge Kopecki. But that's been very preliminary, but I would like to get doodle polls out by the end of this week. And racial disparities group potentially is also one that potentially changes schedules. I think Matt and I need to talk about, or we have talked a little bit about just kind of surveying the new members just to check that time schedule. I know in previous meetings, Patrick Schmitz has indicated that that's and I think Lori has too from DECA, that's a time that might not always work every month. And so that's one group that I think we may just need to survey and make sure that time still works for folks or not. But the other groups have not yet started. But if anyone is interested, I'll be here till all afternoon.
And I'd say, I think that's, our intent then with the every other week or every other month CJCC schedule is that the updates. So maybe hopefully by our July meeting, there can be some
Yes, we'll
initial
have-
meetings can be held, some outlines and some frameworks to how the work's going to continue can be shared at each meeting.
Katie, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
So, and just forgive me if I'm misunderstanding, but I just wanted to ask the status of CIT Council and linkage to this group. We took CIT Council and stepping up and kind of, is that still a work group of CJCC?
Or I don't know if I have.
Bob, I think that's a conversation I think we could try to have with CIT Council does it need to be linked? I don't know that it needs CJCC as an owner, but I think that's something we can talk through.
Okay, thanks.
Any other things on this?
I think that's it. You have the next item.
July.
CJCC agenda.
So our next meeting as for CJCC as a whole is scheduled for July 11th. Which for some of our folks, city and county folks, is right in the middle of budget. But so we will, want to check and make sure folks are still available for that. I mean, it's still on folks' calendars.
Yeah, it will be a day for the Board of County Commissioners deliberations. We can end by 11 and clear this room out. If folks are available. I hate to sort of miss a whole month with us going to every other month, but we wanted to verify with summer schedules that folks could be there before we put a bunch of work into planning an agenda. Thumbs up for who can still make it. Okay, couple folks cannot.
I'll have a designate here.
Okay.
Usually I think in the past years, we've never met in July. It's the one month we get.
Normally messed off August. So the problem is,
I-
So
but now that we're on every other month,
Yeah,
it's,
I-
that's why
I
we
still-
want.
what I,
to talk
what I
about it.
will throw out there though, I have not removed all of the, on your calendars, unless you guys have taken it off, CJCC is actually still on your calendar for every month. Because if I go back and delete, then it actually deletes all of the attachments and information from other months. So I've been canceling them like 1 month at a time. So, so the August initial date is still, should actually still be on people's calendars, but I will.
I mean, would people prefer to meet in August and then again in September?
I serve at the pleasure, so y'all just tell me when I need to be here. Does-
So we're talking about August 8th, then. Is that striking anybody as a bad day? Because I mean, selfishly, as the person who will be in this room that morning anyway for budget deliberations, I wouldn't mind a switch, but I don't want it to mess up everybody's schedule, obviously.
Would that put us just back to back August and
Yeah.
September? Okay.
But it would allow some of these groups to get moving for 2
Yeah.
months too. So there's some advantages in that. It's not like just because we're not meeting, we're not doing any work. So I try to assure people the work happens here outside of Wednesdays. So maybe I'm kind of hearing
that
from the
kind of
group that August would
August?
be better.
Are there any objections to August 8th? All right. Seen a
So
bunch of
potential, so I
comments.
did want to just kind of throw out some potential topics unless you all have, well, one, are there topics you guys have or things that you are really interested in wanting to make sure we get on an agenda? Before I throw mine out.
I would love to hear about the familiar faces work, if there's a way to brief us on what that's been about.
I think that's something we can do. I know Bob's been doing some work to prep the county commission for an update too as well. So we can get that on an agenda soon.
Okay. The other thing, we have the law enforcement contact study. Matt has spent a lot of time and worked with the chiefs updating. So when we were working with Northeastern, Jack and Janice went through, I believe, the end of 2021. And so we have that kind of that updated 2022 data that Matt's been working with the chiefs about. And so that would also be a topic that looking at our 3 chiefs and Chief Mosley, if y'all would potentially want to put that on either August or September's agenda as well.
Are there any more suggestions for the agenda? This is the point in the agenda where we open it up for discussion and public comment. Do we have anybody who wants to say anything today? No hands raised. Bob, do you have your hand raised?
I do. Just wanted to let the members of the council know this Thursday, May 11th, the Interfaith Mental Health Outreach Group is sponsoring a forum at the Lawrence Arts Center from 6 to 8 with the panel starting at 6:30. All of the participants and members of our emerging crisis system, our 24/7 crisis system will be there. So it'll be a great first opportunity to kind of bring the community up to date as to how to access the components of the crisis system. TRC, as everyone knows, is open. The urgent care part of the TRC is open 8 to 8 Monday through Friday, 12 to 4 Saturday and Sunday. And TRC will be opening 24/7 on May 25th. Patrick, do I have that correct?
Yes.
And so, and I'm just going to take this opportunity whenever we have a chance to be connected with the public and everybody else invested in this work. People say, what do I do if I need help? You can dial 988. And if you don't have a local area code, you should always dial 841-2345. That's the starting point for crisis intervention. That's the starting point for help and support. And the more that people know that number and the more that people access that number as the starting point, better off you will be. Mobile response is also online from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. Monday through Friday. 7 days a week, 8 a.m. through 2 a.m. 841-2345 to start with that process.
Bob, I would add that sometimes people wonder if they need to call the TRC before showing up, and the answer is no, just show up. Just show up and the team will meet you, assess and decide with you what the next best step is for you.
Thanks, Patrick. And I would also say to all of our partners and everybody on the council, these are all new components. These are new processes and procedures. And so inevitably we'll bump into hiccups. The best thing that anybody can do when and if they bump into a hiccup or something that seems like it's not working or there's some confusion is to reach out to Bert Nash and to reach out to our partners to communicate what problems you're having. There will inevitably need to be some more conversations convened as we move forward, training and education opportunities, and the best way to turn this system into a great system is for everybody to get engaged in helping us to improve it.
Bob, can you repeat the date of that panel and time again? I missed it. Sorry.
It's this Thursday, May 11th. There will be in the lobby of the Arts Center tabling from 6 o'clock to 6:30. Panel starts in the auditorium, 6:30 to 8. And we'd love to see you.
Thank you for that, Bob. Anybody else have any comments or questions for the council? Do we have anything else for the good of the order today? And seeing nobody with a raised hand, I'm going to say this meeting is adjourned. We'll see everyone at the next meeting on August 8th. Thank you.